Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon if you're calling from Europe. Good evening, calling from Asia. My name is Arnaud Simre. I am the head of growth and partnership at Dune. We are super excited to welcome you for the first ever Solana and Dune live webinar. So the topic of the day is very simple. It's all going to be about Solana data analytics. And to dive into the subject, we put an amazing set of Solana data experts. We have Shashank Unial from the data team at the Solana Foundation. We have Lucas Broder, co-founder and CTO of Jito Labs. Andrew Hong, developer relation headmaster at Dune. And Dune CEO and co-founder Frederick Aga. Before we get started, we have a special guest, the man that probably doesn't need a lot of introduction, Anatoly Yakovenko, co-founder of Solana. Thanks for dropping for us for a few minutes to say hi. How's it going?
Hey, that's good. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So just to break the ice and get started, I always like to ask, so it's morning for you on the West Coast time. Like, what is your morning routine usually on your side?
Well, I've got 3 kids, so I usually try to wake up around 5 or 6 because it gives me like an hour where they're still asleep. Hopefully, doesn't always happen. So I usually wake up pretty early, drink my coffee, start answering emails or writing like design docs. Usually, like if I'm like feel like creative, I ignore all comms and emails and just start working on some doc. If I'm not feeling creative, I like go through all my emails.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, the morning they say, it's the best time to get the flow going.
Yeah.
So we have, thousands of people listening to us. We have people coming from the Solana ecosystem, the Dune community, and I think we have this exciting partnership between our two organizations for a few years. And on the Dune side, we made tremendous improvement to make crypto data accessible specifically for the Solana ecosystem. Maybe take a minute or two to walk us through, this last year, 2023. As they say in crypto, 1 year in crypto is like, I don't know, 5 years in the real world. But if you think about if you think about where we were in the aftermath of unique event last November and all the exciting things that have come up of your side of the house, to kind of walk us through that journey of the last 12 months.
Yeah, it's definitely been crazy year. Like emotionally, it was like a for sure roller coaster. I think like everyone remembers last. I kind of don't think of it in terms of New Year's. Breakpoint is my like end of the year. The last Breakpoint ended on like a horrible down note with like the allegations coming out from FTX, and then learning about like how much of that stuff was true. It was like like a stab in the back or a bad breakup. I don't know if you ever had to go through one of those.
Sadly I did.
Yeah. It's basically like a really bad breakup. But like what was weird is that like basically there was like nothing we could do at Labs or Foundation. It was such a shit show, and like the main thing that I was worried about is like how many ecosystem companies got screwed with their like assets on FTX or Runway, and luckily it was small percentage of them that had anything on there, and out of the ones that got hit, it was like folks like Star Atlas and Armani, and like a lot of founders, like you get into like fight or flight response when something horrible happens, and founders I think more likely to fight, and you could see their like brains turning, fuck this, I'm gonna work. We don't have enough money, but we can still work harder. And that was like their response. And both of them, I think, I don't know if that didn't happen, would we have seen like the kind of like product development and iteration out of Armani that we saw over the year. So like bittersweet is that like it really put a fire under a lot of the founders in the ecosystem, and they shipped and built awesome products, like Lucas included. And like I think this is why the ecosystem is having so much attention, is because folks like Lucas, like Pith, like Armani, like they built really, really good products over the year, and they iterated. And even though like it was a bear market, they just made the products better and better. Their customers like loved them, and now you're seeing that turn around. So like that was really like you know, the year that the ecosystem really took off, you know, like in a way, just well beyond what I could even possibly track, let alone
Got it.
manage.
And what do you think was probably different, obviously different context for this year, if you think about, this DeFi 2.0 specifically, like, Jito, great example, versus probably what was the type of project that you were seeing maybe a year from now? Like, what are some of the differences that you've
Yeah,
seen coming out of Solana?
I think previous cycle we saw a lot of copying from Ethereum, like AMMs and stuff like this. And now this cycle we're seeing really unique applications that are that found that like sweet spot of optimizations that are unique on Solana. So Jupiter's one. I think Phoenix is like a really, really good central limit order book that really demonstrates capital efficiency, like orders of magnitude better than anything else like in crypto. So that's really, really cool to see. Like Jito is like the way that Solana staking is designed, I don't think is like only possible on Solana. I think Ethereum could copy it, but at least we, I think, did it better on Solana. So stake pools combined with like MEV like optimizations, it just makes so much sense. So seeing Jito like do that is really, really cool. So yeah, I'm like, I think Jupiter is like my prime example because I think we're seeing there's nothing wrong with what Ethereum is building. I think it's a cool design and it's proto efficient, but it is creating this kind of like asynchronous separated state machines that have asynchronous dependencies between them and have to settle through the layer one. And that's all super cool, but it's very, very different than a single giant chunk of memory that's replicated globally with a single computer that runs it,
Yeah,
and you see that in Jupiter specifically because Jupiter can take like a 20-cent trade and route it through 4 different markets because that gives you the optimal price. You just can't do that in an asynchronous machine, in an asynchronous
sure.
system, right? So you're gonna like those delays and latencies and fees are all gonna kind of like make it not as efficient. And it's really cool to see those separate and start to see like Jupiter only possible on Solana, kind of thing. So I'm looking forward to folks finding more of those like little clever optimizations and niches and then seeing if they scale up.
Got it. So a lot of exciting things coming out of Solana, definitely this year. I had some amazing feedback from your last breakpoint in Amsterdam. I think the energy was high. I think you outlined a lot of that. I wanted to ask about your take on Warren's AML bill, but I think I know the answer to that, so I'll skip this one. But um, what what do you think in terms of like regulation and what's happening? Like, how do we untangle, or what do you think is going
Yeah,
to happen, over in DC?
US is the worst government except for all the other ones. So like democracy is a slow moving beast. And like you can see democracy working better in smaller countries in Europe, but if you try to scale it to a very large landmass with lots of diverse, like very, very diverse number of people that are all like different interests and stuff, it kind of slows down a bit. And I think as usual, US, there's plenty of smart people in Congress, plenty of people that are less smart and more like selfish, I would say. But like over the long term, the government does the right thing. So
Sure.
like there's 2 bills that are working through Congress. The FIT market structure bill, that FIT 21 is like really promising. If that passes, I think crypto would be much, much easier for US founders to go build companies and like issue tokens and just go full growth mode. And similar with the stablecoin bill, I think if that one passes, you should see every financial company issue a stablecoin. And that's going to be really
Yeah.
that tipping point where you start seeing like APIs for banks are like wrappers of people and fax machines right now. Like, but once they can issue stable coins, it'll really be software eating finance. And like once that
True.
happens, I think you'll see a massive tipping point of like kind of like next fintech 2.0s that are all crypto based. So basically waiting for that. I think it'll happen eventually. If not, like this, within this 2-year cycle, then the next one, like, it's a self-correcting problem because all the opposition is over 70 years old.
Yeah. I think I was looking, the average age of senator or congressman is like 69, which, maybe doesn't help, but
yeah,
I think it's a
and
good
basically
point.
everyone below 70 is like, yeah, okay, this is a technology, let's go adopt it. Everyone above 70 is like, freaking out. So it'll happen eventually.
So a lot of, hopefully, development, let's put it this way, coming for 2024. And so before we kick off the webinar and talk about Solana data analytics, maybe last thought for you, Anatoly, like, excite us a little bit what's coming to Solana in 2024. Like, give us a little tease of
Hard
what you were
answer.
seeing
Like,
coming.
it's not it's all public. It's all being built in the public.
Yeah.
It's a really, really cool project. I can't talk enough about it. It's a team out of Jump, a bunch of folks that have built high frequency trading systems before, that have built systems that handle 400 gigabits worth of real-time streaming data. You guys in the data business understand like how hard it is to do that and being able to make decisions on that data within like nanoseconds for trade. So they have built entire pipelines for this, and they have a deep understanding of systems engineering. And when we talked to them about building Solana, they were like, oh yeah, this seems like obviously it should work. We should be able to scale this, as high as network bandwidth allows. And that to me is like very, very huge validation of the Solana design and this idea that it is possible for us to have a single giant replicated state machine around the world that's synchronized at the speed of light, that's giving everybody fair reads and fair writes. And that, in my mind, will revolutionize kind of trading and finance and a lot of things, because now everyone is in the same level playing field. Every hobbyist in the world is on the same level playing field as Jump, as Citadel, as whatever. There's no more like, there is no like centralized entities that are giving some people preferential access and some not. So it's really, really cool to see them like make progress. It's on testnet already. It's called Frankendancer, so it's running some of their network stack, but Solana is like state processing engine, and they're making a ton of headway in the state processing side. I think last I've checked, they can do like they've done 500 blocks in a row and then like find some bug. So like it's getting closer to them being able to run a full state verification. So that I'm excited about that. I'm also internally, like, I feel like we have like a very diverse group of core devs now, and I want to like get them all aligned on one big push, whether it's like asynchronous execution or concurrent leaders or whatever. Like, I think over this year, like the next year, my goal is to get them like, here's like one doc, it's like 5 changes that we all need to land at the same time. Let's just like power through it.
That would be exciting. Well, it sounds like a lot of exciting things coming out of Solana. And I think, this partnership with Dune obviously is one of the way we make, more transparency in the Solana data so people can have the truth about the ecosystem. So we'll let you go, Anatoly. Thank you so much for this quick chat. I'm already re-energized for the day and for what's coming in the webinar. And let's try to do this next year after Breakpoint in Singapore and see where we're at.
Okay, great.
All right, thanks.
See you guys.
All right. What a way to kick off this webinar by the man who literally co-founded and built Solana back in 2017. All right, let's get to it. I'm going to go off camera. I'll be in the back because I do also want to learn more about what you guys come up with. Andrew, the floor is yours.
Cool. Thank you, Arnaud. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Now we're diving into the meat of it. We'll skip over intros again, but for today we're just gonna kind of give an overview of the Solana ecosystem a little more in depth. We're gonna cover a little bit about what's going on in Jito and Jito Sol, and then we're gonna move into how do you actually understand transactions, work with tokens, accounts, transfers, and balances. It's gonna be very hands-on. I'm gonna pass it over to Shashank to tell us more about the ecosystem.
Sounds good. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here. I'm Shashank. I lead our data initiatives at the Solana Foundation. I've been in the ecosystem for about 2.5 years. So I've been through the highs and lows. So like good time to be in the Solana ecosystem, I guess. All right. So let's start with the network itself. I totally touched on a lot of this, but just going to go over it real quick. Okay. So Solana is known for like being fast and cheap. All right. Solana is known for being fast and cheap. It is one of the cheapest blockchains out there. So transacting with Solana would cost you about $0.001, which is fairly low. You can do tons of transactions as a user and not have to worry about fees. Fastest TPS transactions per sec can go up to 65K, but today's average is about 4K, and that's just dependent on block space. Also, it is one of the most decentralized blockchains. So we have about 2.1K validators, and that brings the Nakamoto coefficient to about 22, which is high. So yeah, what does this mean as a user? As a user, it means that you can do a lot of transactions on Solana and not have to worry about gas. And they settle very fast as well. So like sending USDC from here to, say, China would take milliseconds. If you're a developer, it means that you can build very unique products on Solana. So as Toli was mentioning, you can build order books, you can mint 1 million NFTs for a couple $100. Like a Drip has done about 50 million NFTs, compressed NFTs. And then you can build games like Star Atlas, which do more transactions than other blockchains. So again, like you can build very scalable dApps on Solana. And I think good tech always attracts good developers. So like moving on, we have about 2K plus open source developers, and this doesn't track closed source. So we're still undercounting, but 2K is still a very high number. And to actually like put everything into perspective for the year, I think this chart, the next metric I'm talking about is 90-day retention of developers. So this is essentially tells you like after FTX, there were people who just were like, screw this, I'm going to keep building. And this is exactly what that chart tells you. I think it's one of the most important metrics to track in the ecosystem right now. And you can see how we started about like 37, which is also very high, but we're about to over 40, 50 in September. So yeah, this is like one of my favorite metrics out there. And then hackathons. So not only are we retaining developers, we're also bringing in new developers. So the most recent hackathon, Hyperdrive, we had about 907 developers that submitted for a hackathon. That is like the all-time high that we had for hackathons. So again, I would say the developer ecosystem in Solana is doing great. It's flourishing. I personally like work with a lot of developers, and I think it's one of the best out there. And that brings me to community. So like these developers are building very good dApps. So I'm going to talk about retention of power users first and then super team. So essentially what happened over the year is you would still see the daily active users number go down, but retention is still high. So you're still retaining power users. And what these power users have done is like give good feedback to the developers to build a better product. So what we're seeing now is like the feedback loop of power users to developers and just improvement in products. So I think that's like one of the best things that's happened over the past year. And then we have initiatives like Super Team, which are pretty organic. They're in over 10 plus countries. It's a group of people just building on Solana. And it's artists, it's content creators, it's developers, just contributing to the ecosystem. And they've earned about $2.5 million like in contributions. And again, like just contributing to the ecosystem and making money and keeping that whole cycle going. So yeah, to close it out, I feel like the combination of good tech, which is the network, great developers, and a great community is like the Solana ecosystem. And like this is one of the best places to work at. And just the community is fun too. So if you want to be involved, like I highly recommend it, even as a developer or community member. Yeah, that's my Solana ecosystem overview. Andrew, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Shashank. Next, gonna jump over to Lucas, just talk a little bit about Jito. Jito's been involved at the validator level with Mev, at the liquid staking level, at the DeFi level. Just let Lucas kind of talk about it and see what he's excited about.
Hey, yeah, thanks for having me. So yeah, I'm the co-founder and CEO at Jito Labs and also a contributor to Jito Network. We built the Jito Solana validator client It's a open source validator client that basically enables more profitable and efficient blocks for the Solana network. So, it's running on like 43% of stake right now across more than 300 validators. We're also, as I mentioned, contributors to the Jito network. And the Jito network, one of the products there is Jito Sol, a liquid staking token. Liquid staking, we think it's very very early in the Solana ecosystem, and I think there's a lot of potential there. And we've definitely seen a lot of growth on Jito Sol and Sol and some of the other liquid staking tokens recently. And yeah, I guess the thing about Jito Sol, it's mainly the main advantages there are the liquidity, DeFi integrations, and the validator set. And yeah, I've been working a lot with Andrew and bothering him a lot, asking to make us dashboards. So super excited to be on here and learn more what's going on with Dune and Solana.
Cool. Yeah, all of our queries and learning today is going to be based off of Jito Sol. So you're going to get a lot more familiar. But yeah, thank you, Lucas. All right. So I hope everyone has had fun kind of just relaxing and hearing about all the cool things in the ecosystem. Now comes the harder part. I'm going to try and take everyone through how do you understand this stuff that you see on the right, all these transactions and instructions and these concepts on the left. And then I'm also going to walk through the creation of 2 queries, getting all Jito Sol mints and burns on a weekly basis, and also getting the top Jito Sol holders. It's going to be a lot of content. You might get lost, especially if you don't know any SQL or blockchain data. I'll say we do have a Q&A box. You can ask questions into the box, and then after I go through the queries, I will kind of take as much time as we need, whether that's 10 minutes, 30 minutes, and try and answer people's questions. So without further ado, let me go into this view mode. So basics of a transaction. We're going to go to the Explorer in a second, and you can kind of see something going on over here. But there's 4 sets of concepts you have to learn. First one's easy. Block slot is just the number in which this transaction happened in. The second concept is a signer. There can be multiple signers, but I would just simplify and think of it as there's someone who's paying the fee to execute a transaction. Instructions gets more complex. Accounts also gets more complex. So we're just going to jump over to one of my favorite block explorers, Solana FM. And here there's a transaction hash or transaction ID. I've already pasted it in here. You could search any hash or address you want up here. And essentially what this transaction is this is me actually staking for Jito Sol, I think maybe in September, so a couple months ago. So it was staking 210 Sol, and I got, I think it was like 199 Jito Sol back. You can see that it does not look as simple as I made it sound, especially if you come from the Ethereum world. You might be used to like, oh, it should just be like 2 calls. Why are there like 8 extra calls here? And if I went from compact to detailed, this is normally when people's eyes roll over. I remember the first time I looked at a transaction on Solana, I was like scrolling and I was like, why does this simple transaction have like 18 pages of data? So let's kind of walk through it step by step. So the first thing you need to understand is instructions. So you can see here there's an instruction 1, instruction 2, instruction 3, and then there's also 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4. This 1, 2, and 3, you can think of that as the outer instruction. This is the main thing being done by a specific instruction. So this one here is transferring 210 Sol from one address to another. This one here, and we're going to talk about token programs in a second, it's creating an account for me to hold Jito Sol in, because you don't hold the token inside of your wallet. You actually create another account to hold it for you. And that's one of the most confusing concepts. We'll get into it. But to create an account to hold my Jito Sol, there's actually 4 other inner instructions that have to happen. One is I have to actually create the account. And then 2 is I have to say, hey, this account should be holding Jito Sol as its token. If I was buying USDC, it's kind of the same thing. An account has to be created to hold USDC, and then there's an initialize to assign USDC to it. And the actual transfer or the depositing doesn't happen until this third instruction here, where this is calling the stake pool program. Almost all LSTs go through the stake pool program. And this is saying, hey, now that like everything is ready, like the token has been prepped for transfer and the account is prepped to be receiving the mint, now the easy part is deposit, transfer, and mint the tokens back. It's still a lot of steps. And yes, I see a question already that someone says Solana is complex. It does look very complex. My main advice is like, mentally, you'll get better at just filtering out these like system and computes and like token program instructions. And you'll get better at just reading like, oh, I only really care about deposit SOL. And I see there's a deposit amount here. That's all I care about. So just quickly recapping, that's your outer instruction. These are your inner instructions that are kicked off by the outer instruction. When a program calls another program, that's called a cross-program invocation. Yes, developers like to make things sound really complicated. That's been shortened to CPI, not to be confused with inflation. When someone says CPI, they literally just mean, oh, a program called another program, right? Instructions have data, like you've already seen. And this last confusing part is account arguments. You might be wondering, for depositing stake, why are there like a list of 10 other things here? What does this mean? One of the biggest features of Solana is that you can run things in parallel, right? So the way that they do this is there's two things involved, but like one of the main things involved is like you have to list out all of the accounts involved, so that when a validator or someone looks and tries to order these transactions, they can kind of see, oh, like this specific account is already being written to in this transaction. We can't also have another transaction writing to it. So we have to list out all of these accounts. So that's one reason it's listed here. But this is actually useful for us as data analysts as well, to be able to quickly get like the stake pool address or the user account address. It looks scary. You'll get used to seeing this and understanding this fairly quickly. It just kind of takes some practice. But yeah, that takes you through instructions. You have inner and outer. The executing account is just the program that's running at a specific instruction level. The account arguments are just the account and like all of the accounts involved in the specific instruction. Data is just call data. CPI is program calling another program. We're almost through the definitions phase. This is going to get more fun soon, I promise. For accounts, there's three things you are going to want to understand. The first one is balance changes. So if you go to any explorer, you'll see there's a SOL balance change, and then there's a token balance exchange kind of tab. This is just quickly allowing you to see for all addresses involved in the transaction, was there a balance change, right? So like, yes, my wallet went down by 210 SOL, and then the Jito SOL like stake pool went up by 210 SOL. And then also my wallet account that was created to hold Jito SOL went up by 199. That's just account balances. Account data, I won't go into too much because it's a bit of more of a advanced concept. But for example, if I went to the stake pool here, I can view the data, and the account actually stores more data about like who is the owner of a stake account, and who can authorize withdrawals, who can change the stake and whatnot. Again, that's more advanced. You probably won't run into it until maybe a month into you doing Solana analysis. Now, rent, this is the last one that I'm just putting in here because a lot of people get confused. Like, oh, I sent 210 SOL to stake. Why did I also send 0.002 SOL to some random account? This is called rent. So anytime you create an account on Solana, you have to pay a rent for that account to not get deleted. The reason why it's the 0.002 number is because there is a rent exempt level. Essentially, if you put at least this amount into an account, then that account won't get deleted. And if you choose to delete that account, you get this back. So it's not like you're paying it and losing it forever. But that's why for a lot of transactions, especially if you look at NFT mints, there's like 5 or 10 like 0.002 SOL transactions. And that's purely just paying rent. You should learn to just mentally filter them out. Like you see this and you're like, all right, that's just creating an account. That's not important for me. Cool. I have some query tools here. We're going to come back to this later if we have time. These are just some of the queries I use to make analysis and sleuthing a lot easier. You should check it out when we share the slides. Now let's get into Dune a little more, right? So what we just looked at, this is Solana, this is a block explorer. You can't write queries in here, right? So if you want to write queries, you have to use Dune. And if you want to use Dune, you have to build a mental model for how does the data flow, right? So the raw data, we get straight from RPCs. Two of the main tables you're going to want to use, Solana.instruction calls. That's literally just rows of these instructions. And then Solana.account activity, that is this sol balance change and token balance change tabs. Right. So mentally, you can just think of it as anything in overview you get from instruction calls, anything from balance changes you get from account activity. Now, these tables are really, really big and like hard to work with. A lot of the data that you get from it is all in like base 58 or hexadecimal form. It's not super fun to work with. So something we created earlier this year is decoded tables, right? So I'm going to hop into Dune for a second here, and I will explain this interface, but just bear with me for a second. SPL token, that's this program, this token program. It's technically the SPL token program. And let's say I want to see initialize account. All right, I can just look here. Oh, initialize account here is a table. It's a SQL table that anyone can query. And it has like all of the accounts and call data nicely decoded for you. So that's one of the main decoded tables you'll use. We have hundreds of decoded tables for you to do your analysis easier. You should mainly be using this. You should rarely really use Solana instruction calls. The next level, this is what we're going to be using for our work today, but it's good for you to know that these tables were created from these decoded tables. There's a tokens Solana fungible table, which gives you all of the fungible tokens on Solana. So if I just search this into what we call our data explorer, you'll be able to see a bunch of the tokens, their names, how many decimals they have, their symbols. And same thing for transfers. We have a table that's aggregated all SPL token transfers into one table. And lastly, we'll look at balances as well. And yeah, there's also an NFT table. We're not going to cover NFTs today. It's a little more complex, but I'll share a resource for it later. This is all done in Spellbook. This is all open source. So if I went to Spellbook as our GitHub repo and searched up like token Solana NFT, you can see our exact code for how we get like all NFT tokens. You can see it's actually kind of complex. It's 200 lines of SQL. But as you get more advanced, you'll learn to look into Spellbook and kind of double check like, oh, what does this table really mean? We don't hide anything from you. All of this is like decoded tables are created from like IDLs and the open source code of programs. Spellbook is all created inside of this public GitHub repo, literally called Spellbook. And ultimately, these come together to create high-level tables like DexSolana.trades. So DexSolana.trades is then how we get dashboards like this one that easily show you, oh, what's the trading volume of like Orca or Lifinity or Meteora on any given day, hour, week, etc. Cool. Now you have kind of an understanding of how these transaction basics map to Dune tables. Now, you probably did not understand tokens and accounts earlier at all. I know that this took me, honestly, like weeks to understand how tokens and accounts work. One of the best graphics I've seen for explaining this is from our friends over at Metaplex. You might have heard Metaplex before, as it's for they've built one of the main NFT standards, but they have this great diagram in here that shows there's a wallet account, there's a token account, and there's a mint account. And I want to say accounts are different from programs, right? So something you'll notice if we looked at this transaction here, the associated token program was used to create the token account, right? So the token account is this CW7D7 account. The associated token program sits at this address here, A token GPVB, whatever. Same thing for creating mint accounts. So for deploying Jito Sol, they also call the token program, and we're going to look at the transaction in a second. But they say, okay, I'm going to create an account, and the create account happens through the system program. So accounts are technically blank slates. Anyone can go and create an account and then use another program to initialize something onto it. That's how multi-sigs works. That's how like Orca Whirlpool, like liquidity pools work. That's how vaults work. But essentially what we have is now this 3-account lineage where my wallet that has a seed phrase is now connected to these 2 program created accounts, or what they like to call, again in technical speak, program derived accounts, which they've nicely shortened to PDAs. So the token account actually holds the token. You know what token is being held because it's tied to the mint account, and you know who's holding the token because it's tied to a wallet. All right, and I'm just going to reiterate this one more time. Looking at this page here for token balance change, there's an address, which is the token account. There's an owner, which is the person the wallet that's actually owning it. And then you have the token mint address, which for Jito is J1T0SO1L. And yes, you'll notice, like, why do some places call it an address? Why do some people call it an account? Why do some people say mint? Some people don't say mint. This is just what happens when you have complicated naming. I'm going to quickly show the transaction for creating the mint account, just so we can look at one more transaction and get a sense of things. This is one of the Sleuther queries I use. You can plug in any account into here and get the transaction ID of the creation. So this is when the token mint was created by Edgar, who is one of the members over at the Jito team. If I plug this in here, you'll see, oh, there's a small SOL payment. People should know, what is the SOL payment? It's paying rent. And this one's fairly simple. They created the account, and then they called token program and said, hey, I want this to officially be the token mint account for Jito SOL. So it doesn't hold any tokens, but it now becomes the assigned mint account for anyone who wants to hold a token. Every wallet has to create, so every token account holds a mint account balance for one wallet. It's not like one token account holds everyone's wallet accounts. So that's why you have so many accounts. And again, you might be wondering, why would they do that? This all comes back to how Solana parallelizes its transactions, because if you know that a specific account is being accessed, then no one else is going to be allowed to access that account in a parallelized transaction. So there are reasons for why this is the design. All right, we're going to jump right into queries now. There is this slide here. If you want to take a quick screenshot, we're going to also share this afterwards. This is just kind of showcasing all of the features inside of the Dune query editor. I'm going to walk through it again still, but I'm just putting this quickly here in case you want to save it as we go and walk through the queries. I'll pause for a few seconds. All right. Let's get into writing some SQL. We're not going to get into advanced SQL here. If you don't know any SQL, there's a few tutorials that I can share after this, but I'm going to try and explain as much as I can as I go. So the first query we're going to do is, let's see what are the weekly mints and burns of Jito SOL. So remember, when I staked into the stake pool earlier, I was minted 199 Jito SOL tokens, right? That's what this mint2 instruction did. So if I was to burn those tokens, I would get my 210 SOL back, and the 199 tokens would be burned and disappear. So how do we do this? So I have this weekly mints and burns query. We're going to write it from scratch. Essentially, this button up here is going to be your best friend. I'm going to go and create a new query. And we're going to do a select all from tokens solana.transfers. All right, first thing you do, if you wanted to search this up, you also just do tokens Solana. You'll see the tables here. This is a transfers table, right? So there's an action, there's an amount being transferred. There's the owner that owns the token account that the tokens are being transferred to or from. There's a to-owner and to-token account as well. And then there's a token mint address. There's also the executing accounts and instruction indexes, but we're not going to get into that right now. So if you see, I look here and I'm just looking at some examples, you'll get really good at identifying what tokens are what. Like you'll see ES9 and you'll know, okay, ES9 token mint address, that's USDT. Or you'll see EPJ and you'll see, oh, okay, EPJ, that's USDC. Or you'll see SO11111, and this is wrapped Sol. This is basically taking the native asset of Sol and making it into an SPL token so that it easily works with any Solana protocol. They don't have to go and like handle, oh, is it native or is it an SPL token? So what do I want here? I want to filter for where token mint address is equal to the Jito Sol token mint address, right? So I can get that from here. Remember, we looked at this earlier. This was the token mint address that was created. And I'm going to add a limit 100. So what is this doing? It's looking at token Solana.transfers, filtering for the Jito Sol token, selecting all columns. That's what this asterisk means. And I'm doing a limit 100 to only show me the first 100 rows, right? And you can see, all right, the first rows, which would make sense because you can't transfer something that hasn't been minted yet. These are basically all mints until transfers here. And you might see, oh, wow, this is like a huge mint, right? If I go down to, this is just table formatting actually, but if I add a comma here to format, it's like, oh, someone minted 279 billion Jito Sol. That's incorrect. This is actually just the raw data. Anyone who's familiar with blockchain data should know that raw data on chain, there is no such thing as decimals. Decimals is this concept that blockchains just don't know of. However, humans need it. So where do we store decimals? Anyone that was looking really closely before would have noticed that on tokens fungible, there's a decimals column. So we want to pull this decimals column into here so that we're able to decipher amount. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do the most confusing SQL function. I'm going to start using joins. I'm not really going to explain joins here. I'm going to try to give you an intuition for it. But essentially, I want to join these two tables, so transfers and fungible, on token mint address. So that literally just looks like left join. I've renamed these tables so I don't have to write as much, but left join transfer dot token mint address to tokens dot token mint address. And I'm going to select, I'm going to run this and it's going to give me an error. It's going to say token mint address is ambiguous. That's because now there's two tables that have this token mint address column. It doesn't know which one I want to filter on. I want to filter on the transfers one. Technically, it actually doesn't matter which one I filter on in this case. And oh, I actually don't want to run that. I wanted to pull symbol and decimals first. So I'm pulling the symbol column from tokens, the decimals column from tokens, and then all columns from transfers. And you'll notice I put the comma on the left here. You can put it on the right. I just prefer putting the comma on the left because it makes it easier to comment things out. So you can see now that I've done the join, the symbols here, Jito Sol is 9 decimals. That does not mean every token is 9 decimals. Some are 0, some are 5, some are 6. So technically, this value here is not 1 billion. It's like 1.097. So how would I show that? I would do tr.amount, and I want to divide by 10 to the power of decimals as actual amount. All right, let's run this one more time. And now you can see that the actual amount in this transaction was 26 Jito Sol, even though the amount shown in the transfer table is 26 billion or so. So that's just something to keep in mind. Now, we don't want to lose the plot. We want to create this weekly mints and burns table. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use date trunc, which just truncates a specific date to the closest week. So in this case, I'm saying, all right, I want to get the week of whatever April 5th is. So it'll truncate it to that Monday. And I want to get the sum. So basically, I want the total transferred amount of a given week. So I'm going to do a group by 1, and I'm going to add one more filter here just to make this query run faster. I'm going to say I only want transfers within the last 30 days, right? So this is saying now minus 30 days, the block time of the transfer has to be greater than that. I can remove this. So what is group by? Group by is just how you do aggregations. If you want to sum some value by some other value, you have to do a group by. And this will make more sense once I add the second column. But we can see here that the total amount that was either minted, burned, or transferred has been pretty stable around like 6 million for the last few weeks. Of course, it went up last week because of the airdrop. So let's make this 90. And we originally wanted just mints and burns, right? So what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to group by action as well, because I want to know the specific amount transferred in a specific action. So I add that to the group by. And if I do this, I'm going to let it run. And you can now see, oh, okay, there's mint, there's transfer, there's burn. If I add a bar chart, so I'm going to create a chart now. You can create as many charts as you want. You still have the query results over here. I can select amount, and I want it to group by action. And we can go ahead and stack this to see, oh, mints, burns, and transfers. It's not super readable. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to first filter out transfers. So action in mint and burn. You could also do action not equal to transfer. And what I want is if action equals mint, make it positive. Otherwise, make it negative. This is basically a SQL if statement. So now when I run this one more time, and this is a good time to point out that there are multiple tiers of running. I'm running on the medium tier, which is semi-fast. You can run on the large tier, which will run really fast. But now you can see, okay, we can now see weekly mints and burns for Jito Sol over the last 90 days. And you can just save the query here. I'm not going to save it because I already have it saved over here. And with this, you can kind of see, oh, Jito Sol's first mint was all the way back in October of 2022. The activity was pretty flat until June. And suddenly in June, things started picking up. And then in October, things really started picking up. So these are always like this kind of time series analysis on tokens is always super useful to kind of understand momentum. You could change this token mint address to any token mint address. And basically what we created was not just weekly mints and burns for Jito Sol. We created weekly mints and burns for any SPL token on Solana. So that's the first query. Good job to everyone who's followed along so far. I highly recommend try to write this query from scratch yourself. You're going to find that there's a lot that you didn't actually understand, and that'll make you a stronger analyst in the long run. If you felt that was way too easy, go in and calculate the circulating supply of USDC on Solana. It is not just mints and burns because Circle centrally manages mints and burns themselves. I will leave it to you to figure out what that means and how to write that query. And if that is still too simple for you, I have an advanced reference here from a dashboard I released this morning showing LST basically like whale movements. So looking for any transfer of any LST with more than 3,000 SOL, where was it a transfer out or a transfer in? What program was invoked? And you can kind of see, oh, for Jupiter, I've made it mark so it's a sell or a buy. And for stuff like Camino and MarginFi or stuff like that, was it a deposit or a withdrawal? And mints and everything are marked here as well. Again, this deck will be shared later, so you can find the link. But if you can create this, then you have a pretty good understanding of Solana transfers and tokens. All right, take a quick breath, reset. We're going to now move into another concept, which is balances. Token balances is probably the thing you will use most besides transfers. So we want to see what are the top Jito Sol holders. So I already have this query over here. We're going to just, again, same thing, recreate it from scratch. I'm going to start a new query. And what we're going to start with is actually, let me show you what the base table looks like. So earlier I mentioned account activity is literally this SOL balance change and token balance change tables. So if I did select all from Solana.account activity, where, let me actually double check, Solana account activity, it is token mint address equals, and I'm going to do a very small limit here, and also filter for block time greater than now minus interval, like we'll do like 1 day. And I'm going to bump this up to the large cluster. You might be asking, why am I doing that for such a small query? Account activity, there's a row in there for every account for every transaction. So this is an absolutely gigantic table. If you try and just use this table for like any of your work and you join on it to something else, that query is likely going to crash. That is the reason why I created daily balances and latest balances as tables, just so for every account, it's literally basically the same table as account activity, but just filtered for like the balance at end of day. And this runs once a day. But you can kind of see here, for account activity, it just literally has all of these transactions and like the address of the transaction and like the pre and post token balance. So if I wanted just latest balances, or if I want the top holders, then I only need latest balances. So I can pop that into here. We can preview it just so you get an understanding of what this table is. It's just the address, the SOL balance, the token mint address if it has one, the token balance owner if it has one. You'll notice some of these are like null because my wallet will also show up here. My wallet is just a normal address. It doesn't have a token mint address and it doesn't have an owner besides itself. So these are going to show up empty. But yeah, I'm going to say Solana, not Solana, select all from Solana utils, latest balances, where token mint address is equal to Jito SOL. Now let me order by token balance descending. And you might say, oh, there we go. That's all I had to do. I got to order by token balance for a given token mint address, and that gets me all holders. And I'm going to tell you, no, that's actually wrong, because a user could close and open multiple accounts for a given token over time. And depending on various factors, the address that token account, remember, if you've gotten lost like this one that was created, that address might change over time. So a specific owner could actually have multiple token addresses. So what I need to do instead is say, for a given token balance owner, get me the sum of token balance as total tokens held. And then I'm going to just order by this. We're going to do a group by again, because I want to aggregate all of the token balances for a given token holder. And then we're going to run this. And this is going to give you the total tokens held. And I can go and make this nicely formatted however I want. And I like to usually do a 0.0a to round this out. Other thing you'll see me do commonly is commas. And now I have my list of top 100 Jito SOL holders. Again, the hard part, I think, to wrap your head around here is just how token accounts work and understanding that latest balances is just taking the latest value from daily balances, and daily balances is taking the daily latest value from Solana.account activity. If you understand that, balances becomes a lot easier to work with. I won't go into this here, but you'll see I also have an SNS domains join in my example query. This is like ENS domains. I just like to get the SNS domain so that sometimes the tables become more readable. You know that Multicoin Capital is up here as one of the top holders of Jito SOL. There's also this diamond hands person. And if I keep scrolling, there's Sea Fox, a few others. You'll sometimes see names that you recognize in there. But that gives you an idea of how token accounts and balances work. If I wanted to see these queries, I can go to my library and you'll see that I have these queries here among a bunch of other ones that I've been editing. You can share this with a friend just with the link. You can create an API endpoint for it. You can schedule this query and we soon have alerts so that you can get these total, like who are the highest Jito Sol balance holders into your Slack every day or Telegram, and download CSV materializations. I'm not going to get into, but if you're a data engineer, then you probably know what materializing means, and hopefully that gets you excited. But there's a bunch of options you can go from here. Now, if that token balance query was too easy, try and create and get the top 100 Jito Sol holders at any given date in time. So not just latest balances, you're going to have to use daily balances, and you'll likely need to use either window functions or max by, which is going to require you to dive into our documentation at dune.com/docs under query, under Dune SQL and functions and operators. You'll see every single function listed. So this will require you to go into documentation a little, but that'll be good practice. And if that was still too easy for you, I have another advanced reference. This is getting the USD liquidity or TVL of all Solana DEX pools. I'm going to pull up the query. This one is fairly complex. There's a lot of nuance to it. You can see that it's, I think, almost 100 lines long. I filter out a bunch of like shit coins that are screwing with the data. But if you want, try and understand what I'm doing here. There's forward fills, there's multiple price sources, there's cross joins. It's fairly advanced. But if you understand this, then you're golden to go and analyze basically anything in Solana. So those are the two queries I wanted to share with you today. Again, if that was too difficult, don't worry. It takes time. Rewatch this tutorial, not rewatch, but like redo those queries. Try to write it yourself, following along with the video. Try to write it yourself, not looking at the video, and like really dig into each tables. Try to understand what they mean. Go and use block explorers as much as you want. They will be extremely helpful for you. If you need reference dashboards, I have a list of 6 dashboards here covering like ecosystem stuff, DEXs, NFTs, staking. Go and look at those queries, try and learn from them. The good thing is that any query you see on Dune, if it's public, you can just look at the code and fork it. So you can go to my USD volume, query, fork it, and now you can go and edit it and change whatever you want. If you're more of a reading kind of person, I've written a 4-part analytics guide that'll teach you from the basics how to do very advanced analysis. If you're from Ethereum, I have a translation guide that teaches you like what are all of the names, like how do the terms in Ethereum relate to the terms in Solana. And if you just want to analyze any program, I have a more beginner's guide here as well. My last caveat here before I open up for questions is just the easiest way to learn Solana is to use it. If you're an analyst just trying to analyze this stuff and you've never used Solana once, I promise you, you're going to have a bad time. It's a lot easier. Just spin up a wallet, go try a small trade on Jupiter, and like look at that trade and see if you understand these instructions. Like this is what I did when I was building like the Jito Sol dashboard. I went and I deposited into Jito Sol and I tried understanding, okay, I kind of understand what I did from a UI level. How does that match with these instructions here? What do I understand? What do I not? And yeah, that's everything I have. Thank you for sticking around and listening to all of our amazing speakers and learning Solana with us today. We're going to continue putting a lot of this effort in from the Dune side. We might have more seminars in January, and I'm going to open up to questions.
Thank you, first of all, Andrew. I was captivated, by this deep dive. Definitely, I think we saw some comments that Solana is a different beast. I think we had people coming from obviously the EVM landscape and and other chains. But hopefully this is a starting point on how to look into Solana transaction and how to leverage Dune to do that. There are some questions. Maybe Andrew, if you can take a time, we try to answer some of them already. But if you have the open Q&A, maybe we can go through some of that. I can read it to you if you have access to them. Maybe we can look at some of
I think
the
I can see
open
them.
ones.
If I put it on the screen, can you guys see it? I dragged it over. I don't know if Zoom shows it. Probably not.
You'll have to share specifically that.
Okay, I'll just read off of it. For any transfer from wallet to contract, does Solana create an account except wallet-to-wallet transfer? So it doesn't matter if you're a contract or a wallet. To hold tokens, you have to have a token account. The only exception is for the sole native token. The native token can be held in any specific account. It doesn't have to be held in a token account. The wrapped native tokens or wrapped SOL is an SPL token. It does need to be held in a token account. What about NFT mints? How do we map tokens to the collection address? This one's actually much more complicated. The query I recommend you take a look at is go to the NFT dashboard, go to trending collections, and you're going to see that I do a join on either verified creator or collection mint. These are columns that I've already brought into token Solana.nft. You might have saw the spellbook query from earlier that was like 300 lines. It is fairly complex to understand. And the good thing is that I wrote a guide covering NFTs specifically. It's part 3 of the analytics guide. It takes you through everything about what is an NFT, how to understand the concepts, and like what are all the different types of NFTs. Outside of the slides, are there more exercises to practice? I would say if you can try these slide exercises, I put like recreating the original query, trying the challenge query, trying the advanced reference. If you can create those and you're just looking for more practice at that point, just go on Twitter, see what people are tweeting about and see if you can go and analyze it. That's at that point, that's going to be the best practice you can get. The recording and presentation doc, yeah, it will be available. We're going to share this. It's going to be on YouTube, and we're also going to share it on Twitter as well after we finish some editing. So yeah, this will all be public. Is there a course or something that I can use to get better? It's in the plans, or we're thinking about it. We're going to see, you know, how receptive people are to this, and go and see what you build. The more you ask for this on Twitter, the more likely we will actually go and build out a course. So go tweet about it. Go tag Frederick and tag Anatoly, and then I'll go and do it. What's the best tip to start for someone who has some knowledge of SQL but doesn't know anything about the Solana data area? If you know SQL already, go through my analytics starter guide. With the knowledge you have from this seminar, you'll be well prepared to walk through it. After you go through these 4 parts, if you make it through all 4 parts, you're going to be like, well, like probably already like within the top 5% of Solana analysts, if not higher. What is the significance of a program address? So programs are like smart contracts. They're deployed, they go and run logic. So there's nothing specifically significant about a program address. I actually, it's all deployed through, I hope Solana FM shows this. Programs. All programs are deployed through this BPF loader upgradable account. It does get complex in terms of like the program is not just one address technically. It has data programs that hold different data, and like program structures get complex. I talk about that also in this analytics guide. If you look at, this is long. If you go to part 2, I have a part where I talk about different kinds of programs and even how to read the Rust. What are some good Sol ecosystem resources that we can use to validate our data outputs? That one's hard. That's part of the reason why I've taken us on this journey. The more good analysis we have from more people, the more confident we can get in our statistics. I would say I've tried to put together the most accurate dashboards that I can. I try to reference from asking teams, from looking at DeFi Llama, from looking at other platforms, like trying to see how closely our numbers tie. Rarely will the numbers tie exactly, but typically it's like the more people that are involved, the easier it is to go and try and verify it. And yeah, I think that's all the questions. Kind of speed run those, but yeah, if you have any more questions, reach out to either me on Twitter or Shashank on Twitter or Arnaud. We're more than happy to chat. We're very friendly people. We're not going to be mean to you. We just want to help you learn. I see one more question here. Oh, wow. Okay, there's a lot more questions. Maybe Shashank, if you want to give any thoughts before I know we've kept you here for a while. Any thoughts or plugs you want for like resources for Solana data or ways to get involved?
I think ways to get involved is a very good one. Honestly, just go use a Solana app. And I think that's the best place to start. The second best place to start is just go check out Super Team. So let me drop a link real quick. And I don't know if I can put this into chat or not, but
if you're sending to me, I will send it to all our attendees.
Gotcha. I just sent it to you. Yeah, go check out some bounties for Super Team. And it's not only technical; it gives you a good idea of like what's going on in the ecosystem. And yeah, at least from a data perspective, I feel like the space is very undersaturated. So if you're starting now, this is a very good time. There are not too many Solana data analysts. And I can see the demand growing by the day. So like as the ecosystem matures, there will be a demand and we will need to fill that demand. So that's why I want to keep Andrew doing what he's doing. But yeah, that's all I have.
Andrew, have we answered all the questions?
I think the questions coming in now are all a lot more complex. I'm not going to be able to replicate Dex TVL in this seminar, but hopefully next time. So I think it's a good stopping point for us today.
Well, for all of you who still have questions, through the resources that Shashank shared to get involved in the Solana ecosystem, to hopefully start using Dune and all the Solana data available, and Drew, myself, and the entire Dune organization are here to help you. If you're looking at some people, look at the Twitter handle. It is in the invite. If you go to the Dune main Twitter handle, you'll have probably a couple of posts with both Shashank, Andrew's, and Luca's handle if you want to reach out to them directly. Join also the Dune Discord, a lot of exciting conversation around that. And hope to have more probably educational course around Solana coming soon from Andrew and the rest of the team. I want to thank you, Shashank, for supporting and getting your hands dirty in the whole Solana data ecosystem with Dune. I think it was fantastic. I learned a lot. I can tell everybody is getting excited. And I think Anatoly gave us a great read into why we should be excited even more in 2024 about what's coming from Solana. Thank you, Shashank. Thank you, Andrew, for the amazing webinar. More to come from the Dune team. Happy holidays for all of you.
Bye, everyone.
All right, thank you, folks. Bye-bye.